Camilla Roslin stood in the doorway of the nursery that wasn't finished yet. Her fingers rested on the edge of the white crib she had spent the last 2 weekends building alone. A soft mobile of paper cranes turned slowly above it, catching the reflection of the chandelier like 1,000 quiet promises. Downstairs, a roast was cold. Candles had burned down. A handwritten card sat next to a box, the kind with tiny yellow booties wrapped in tissue, and a sonogram folded beneath a ribbon. She'd been planning to give it to him tonight. But the clock had passed midnight, and Cole Whitaker, her husband, a billionaire real estate magnate, with more power than most governors, hadn't come home. Again. She pressed her palm gently to her stomach. 7 weeks. Not long enough to show, but long enough to feel the weight of what was growing. The first night she found out, she'd cried with joy. Now she just felt hollow. Her phone screen lit up. A calendar reminder, tell Cole the news. She stared at it for a long second before swiping it away. Outside, wind rustled the magnolia trees lining the drive. Somewhere in the distance, a jazz band played softly through someone's open window. The whole city was wrapped in romance and red velvet ribbon. Except here. Camilla walked into the kitchen and blew out the last candle. Silence draped around her like a shroud. Her fingers skimmed the marble counter, then paused when she saw it, his wine glass from last night, still smeared with lipstick. Not hers. The realization didn't come with screaming. It came with clarity. Cold. Sharp. Final. She turned off the lights and climbed the stairs. Not to sleep had left her weeks ago, but to plan. Because something inside her had quietly shifted. This time she wasn't waiting for explanations. When Cole finally returned, it was just past 2 a.m. The iron gate creaked open, and the tires of his black Jaguar whispered over gravel. He didn't know the lights had been turned off hours ago, or that she'd stopped wondering if he was just stuck at work. She watched from the upstairs window as he paused in the driveway. He sat there longer than usual. Maybe rehearsing a lie. Maybe trying to remember the name of the perfume clinging to his collar. When he came inside, she didn't rush to meet him. She let him walk into the quiet like a man entering his own museum, all marble and memory, everything carefully curated, untouched. He smelled like orchids. "Cam," he said softly as he stepped into their bedroom. She stood by the vanity brushing her hair, not because she needed to, but because she needed something to do with her hands. "Where were you?" He loosened his collar. "Dinner with clients ran late. Traffic." She turned slowly. "Is Juliet a client now?" His mouth opened then closed. No one had taught Cole Whitaker how to lose control. Until now. "Camilla." "Don't lie," she said, her voice steady, soft. "Just don't insult me with a lie." He looked older tonight. Not tired, worn. The way someone looks when they realize the ground beneath them has started to shift. "You don't understand," he tried. "Things have been difficult between us. You've been distant. I've been pregnant." The words landed like a stone in still water. His eyes flicked to her stomach, then back to her face. She didn't flinch. "I was going to tell you tonight. I had a gift. Dinner, a card, a pause. You spent Christmas Eve with another woman." He stepped forward. "Cam, wait, no." She raised a hand. "You don't get to spin this." Silence stretched between them, the kind that filled boardrooms before bad news. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. She almost laughed. "You didn't mean to. That's your defense." He dropped into the armchair by the fireplace, running a hand through his hair. "I don't even know why I did it. Maybe I felt lost. Maybe I needed to feel something again. You needed to feel something." She tasted the words. "And now I'm the collateral damage." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Are you keeping it?" She looked at him, then really looked. And what she saw wasn't the man she married. It was a man who couldn't see past himself even when his world was cracking open. "I'm not just keeping this child," she said. "I'm building a life without you." He looked up, shocked. "Cam, I'm selling the house." That silenced him. She nodded slowly. "It's already in motion. The agent's coming after New Year's. I'll take the cottage on Holloway Lane. You can keep your empire. You're serious. I'm done, Cole." Outside, the wind picked up. The house creaked like it had heard her. She moved toward the door, pausing just before she left the room. Her voice was low, almost kind. "I hope she was worth it." He stood stunned, too slow to stop her, as she disappeared down the hall. She didn't look back. She wouldn't. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. The morning sun in Savannah didn't bring warmth. It spilled across the grand staircase in quiet stripes, lighting up a home that suddenly felt more like a museum than a marriage. Camilla moved through it deliberately, barefoot on the cool floors, her robe tied loosely, her eyes focused on nothing and everything. In the kitchen, she poured herself tea, not to drink it, but to feel the routine. The silence was loud. Somewhere in the background, the grandfather clock chimed 8. Cole hadn't come downstairs. She didn't care. Not anymore. Camilla picked up the real estate folder from the counter. The one she'd prepared weeks ago. A decision she'd flirted with in theory, now sealed with finality. She flipped through the photos the agent had printed, exterior shots, aerials of the land-wide, glossy angles of the estate's best corners. The house looked beautiful, elegant, loveless. She circled a listing date and jotted down a note, "Include nursery photos, last soften the exit." The sound of slow footsteps on the stairs broke the silence. She didn't turn. Cole entered the kitchen wearing yesterday's suit. His shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes, usually sharp and polished, were hollow. He looked like a man who had walked into a fire and realized too late that it was his own. He paused in the doorway. "You're up early?" "I never went to sleep." He watched her set down her pen. "Cam, I know last night I'm not doing this." She cut in gently without looking at him. "Just let me explain. Explain what she turned now, calm and steady. That you left me alone on Christmas, that you let me find out about her the way I did." He shifted, jaw tight. "It wasn't planned. I didn't mean for it to happen like that." She met his eyes for a moment that felt longer than it was. "You had choices, Cole. You made them." He crossed his arms, unsure of what to say. "You're not really selling the house." Camilla slid the papers across the counter toward him. "The listing goes live next week." His eyes scanned the page. "This is my family home, and I'm not part of your family anymore." The words dropped with a softness that hurt more than shouting ever could. He stared at her, waiting for a crack in her voice, a tremble in her hands. Something. But Camilla was composed, too composed, and it made him panic more than anything else. "You're angry." "No," she said. "I'm clear." The back door opened then, and a breeze lifted the edges of the listing forms. They fluttered like leaves across the table. Cole didn't reach for them. "I'll have my things out by the time the house sells," she added. "Cam, please, let's talk about this." She shook her head. Talking would imply we're still in something. We're not. We haven't been for a long time. He swallowed. "What about the baby?" She looked down, then back at him, her hand resting instinctively over her stomach. "I'm going to be a mother. Whether you're involved or not, that's up to you. But don't confuse that with me saving this marriage." His shoulders sank slightly. The weight of what he'd done was beginning to settle in his spine. But she wasn't finished. I don't need your money. I've kept my business separate for a reason. I know you have, he said quickly. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Her voice broke slightly, and for the first time a flicker of pain reached the surface. What did I do to deserve being replaced during the holidays while carrying your child? He stepped forward instinctively, but she raised her hand again, not in fear, but as a boundary. I don't want pity, Cole. I want peace. He stood there rooted to the floor as she turned away. A knock at the front door pulled her attention. She moved down the hall without another word, the click of her steps echoing off the walls. When she opened it, the cold air swept in along with the crisp scent of pine and frost. Annalise stood on the porch, a bag over one shoulder and a scarf wrapped loosely around her neck. Camilla blinked. What are you doing here? You didn't answer my texts or my calls, which means something's wrong. She stepped inside and kissed her sister's cheek. So here I am. Camilla closed the door quietly behind her. You always did have terrible boundaries. I prefer to call it intuition. Annalise pulled off her gloves. Want to tell me what happened, or should I guess? Camilla leaned against the foyer wall and exhaled. He spent Christmas Eve with another woman. Silence. Annalise's jaw tightened, but she didn't react the way most would have. No fury, no outrage. Just a slow nod and a long pause. Okay, she said softly. What now? I'm selling the house. Good start. I'm keeping the baby. Better. Camilla's lips curved barely. I meant what I said last year, you know. Annalise tilted her head. Which part? That if I ever find myself alone in this place, I'd burn it down before letting it become a monument to a lie. Annalise's eyes glinted. Well, selling it is more eco-friendly. From the hallway, they heard the sound of a cabinet door closing. Cole was still here. Annalise looked toward the noise. Want me to stay only if you don't kill him? No promises? They both smiled. For the first time in hours, Camilla felt the tightness in her chest ease. They walked toward the living room together. The morning light streamed through the tall windows, catching the edges of the gold-trimmed Christmas tree. It looked perfect. But she wasn't keeping it. Annalise walked slowly past the fireplace. Her eyes landed on a silver photo frame of Camilla and Cole at last year's New Year's gala. She picked it up, studied it for a second, and turned it face down. That feels right, she said. Camilla stood still watching the light hit the back of the frame. He asked if I was keeping the baby, she murmured. And what did you say? That I already am. Annalise nodded. Then we've got work to do. Camilla looked at her sister standing in the middle of a life she had never expected to unravel, and felt something she hadn't felt in days. Steady. This wasn't going to be easy, but it was going to be hers. Every decision, every step, every new beginning, and Cole would just have to watch. The sign went up 2 days later, a simple white post with black lettering that read, Whitaker Estate, Private Sale. Camilla watched from the window as the real estate agent, a woman named Daphne Hartwell, adjusted the frame in the soft earth. Daphne wore a beige trench coat and stilettos, her clipboard tucked under one arm, and a Bluetooth earpiece in her left ear. Every movement was crisp, practiced, intentional. Exactly what Camilla needed. Inside, the air felt heavier, like the house itself was holding its breath. Cole hadn't said much since that morning. He'd moved into one of the guest bedrooms, leaving his cufflinks on the master bathroom sink, like they still meant something. Camilla hadn't touched them. Annalise entered the room, carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. The agent looks like she eats luxury listings for breakfast. She does, Camilla replied, taking the mug. And she's already got 3 interested buyers, 1 from Atlanta, 2 from New York. Annalise leaned over to look out the window. Good. Let them have it. Let someone else try to make this place feel like home. They stood side by side in silence, watching Daphne circle the perimeter with her phone out, snapping pictures, making notes. Camilla sipped the drink, feeling the warmth cut through the cold that had settled deep in her bones. I saw him last night, Annalise said quietly. Camilla didn't look at her. Where downstairs? Just standing in the dining room. No lights on, staring at the table like he didn't recognize it. Camilla set her mug down. I know you're done with him, Annalise continued, but he's unraveling. Quietly. In that very Cole Whitaker way. He should unravel, Camilla said. He's finally seeing the mess he made. Annalise reached out and squeezed her hand. I'm just saying, be ready. Men like him don't go down without trying to rebuild something, even if they don't deserve it. There was a knock at the front door. Camilla turned, startled. That's early? Annalise shrugged and disappeared into the hallway. Moments later, she returned with Daphne and a man Camilla didn't recognize. He was tall, probably in his early 40s, with a clean-cut look and warm brown skin. His navy overcoat was dusted with fine raindrops, and he held a soft leather portfolio in one hand. His expression was calm, curious, unreadable. Camilla Daphne said, "This is Marlon Gaines. He's visiting from Charleston and wanted to view the property in person before the new year." He was quite insistent. Camilla raised an eyebrow. Marlon Gaines? As in Whitaker Capital's COO? He nodded once. I used to be. Daphne looked between them, sensing something brewing. I'll just start the walkthrough, shall I? She disappeared with Annalise in tow, leaving Camilla and Marlon alone in the foyer. He looked around the house like someone returning to a story they'd once left unfinished. I knew Cole would never sell this place unless something serious happened, he said finally. I wasn't expecting you to be the one showing it. I'm not showing it, Camilla replied. I'm letting it go. Marlon's eyes landed on her stomach. His expression shifted, subtle but noticeable. Congratulations, he said softly. Thank you. He stepped forward slowly, cautious but not tentative. I used to come here for Christmas, you know, before Cole changed. I didn't know that, yeah. This house used to be filled with people, laughter music games on the lawn. But once Cole started building things in his name, the warmth faded. He stopped inviting people who knew him before the money. Camilla crossed her arms, leaning against the banister. That sounds familiar. I'm not here to judge, Marlon said. I came because I heard a rumor, one that didn't sit right. She tilted her head. And what rumor was that? That you were selling this house because Cole cheated on you, while you were pregnant? Camilla didn't blink. It's not a rumor. Marlon exhaled slowly. He used to talk about you like you were the anchor that kept him human. Then he must have started resenting the weight. There was a beat of silence. Outside, Daphne's voice floated through the French doors as she showed the garden to a potential buyer. Camilla could see her gesturing toward the trees, the stone benches, the reflecting pond that hadn't been filled since autumn. Marlon stepped closer. Forgive me for being forward, but what are you really trying to sell, Camilla, the house, or the part of your life that still has his name on it? She looked at him, then her voice quieter. Both. He nodded. That's brave. It doesn't feel brave, she whispered. It never does while you're doing it. He reached into his coat and pulled out a business card, offering it to her. I've started my own firm. Smaller, more values-driven. If you ever want to consult design spaces for real people with real stories, give me a call. You have an eye for warmth, even in cold rooms. Camilla hesitated, then took the card. That's unexpected, he smiled. Sometimes good things are. Their eyes held for a moment. Not flirtation, not hope. Just recognition, one survivor to another. Take care of yourself, Camilla, he said before turning towards the door. She watched him go, his figure disappearing into the gray mist of late December. There was something in the way he walked, steady, unrushed, that stayed with her long after the door clicked shut. Upstairs, Cole sat at the edge of the guest bed, a folder open in his lap. From the window, he'd seen the man arrive. He'd seen Camilla take the card. And though he couldn't hear the conversation, he didn't need to, because for the first time he realized something. She was really leaving, and she wasn't going alone. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. The invitation came in a gilded envelope with calligraphy too ornate to ignore. Camilla turned it over twice, then again, as if her fingers might burn through the truth of it. The annual Savannah Heritage Winter Gala, hosted every year at the historic Aldridge Conservatory. Charity, society, appearances, and Cole's world. She would have thrown it out once, but not now. Annalise sat at the kitchen table, chewing the end of a pencil. "You're not seriously considering going?" Camilla didn't answer right away. "It's a circus," Annalise continued. "Every woman in that room will be watching you, and every man will be pretending they're not." "That's exactly why I have to go," Camilla said softly. She wasn't doing it for revenge, not to reclaim some image or shatter someone else's. She was going because silence was no longer strength, and presence poised, unbothered, undeniable would be her response. The night arrived like an exhale. Cold air swept through Savannah's cobbled streets as town cars lined up outside the glass-paneled conservatory. Strings of white lights draped from the columns. Waiters passed trays of champagne under the marble arches. It smelled of pine perfume and polished legacy. Camilla stepped from the car with her chin lifted and her heart steady. She wore a floor-length black velvet gown, not flashy, not modest, just breathtaking. Simple diamond studs at her ears, her hair pulled into a low knot. Everything about her said what words couldn't: "I am not the woman you remember." She walked into the light, and conversations softened. Faces turned. There was a split second, maybe less, where the entire room seemed to tilt. Cole was already there. He stood near the center fountain, flanked by business allies, his glass untouched in his hand. When he saw her, he froze. Then came Juliet. The woman who once operated in whispers now stood fully in view, a vision of calculated elegance in red silk. Her hand brushed Cole's arm too comfortably. Her laugh was too loud. Her eyes too bright when they met Camilla's. Camilla smiled, calm and unreadable. She moved through the crowd with measured grace, accepting compliments, fielding glances. She didn't seek Cole's eyes, but she could feel them on her. The mayor's wife leaned in. "You look radiant, darling." "Thank you." "And the baby healthy," Camilla said, hand gently resting on her stomach. "We're both growing stronger." The reply made its way across the ballroom faster than champagne. Juliet approached like it was staged. "Camilla," she said sweetly, "you look brave." Camilla turned to face her fully. "You look rehearsed." Juliet's smile faltered. Cole tried to step forward, but Camilla raised a glass before he could speak. "To new chapters," she said loud enough for those around her to hear. "And the grace to walk away from the ones that tried to break us." There was a ripple, soft gasps, hidden smirks. Juliet blinked, but Camilla was already gone, gliding toward the west wing of the conservatory. She paused near the long gallery where local artists had displayed their work. A soft piano played from across the atrium. Her heart was racing now, not from fear, from power, from finally remembering who she was before his name attached itself to hers. "Did I miss a toast?" a voice said beside her. Marlon Gaines stood there in a slate suit, hands casually in his pockets. His presence was calm like a harbor after storm winds. Camilla smiled faintly. Depends who you ask. I saw Juliet retreating toward the champagne, like her life depended on it. Camilla chuckled under her breath. She likes a good show, and you just rewrote the script. She turned to face him. What are you doing here? I support the arts. And sometimes I like to watch society implode with a string quartet playing behind it. Her lips curved, still subtle as ever. Marlon looked at her with something that wasn't pity or flirtation, just clarity. You handled that perfectly. No tears. No drama. Just truth. It's all I have left. No, he said gently. It's what you finally reclaimed. Their eyes met, not romantically, not yet. But something shifted, a recognition of safety of someone who didn't see her as a possession or a performance. Cole appeared at a distance, watching, waiting. Marlon noticed. He's not going to let go easily. He already did, Camilla said. They stood there in quiet for a beat. The gala moved around them, laughter violins, clinking glass, but Camilla felt still. Do you dance? Marlon asked. She hesitated, then nodded. I used to. He offered his arm. Let's remember how. She took it. They moved to the dance floor slowly, easily, the way two people do when neither is trying to impress the other. Just a rhythm. Just a moment. Cole watched from the far end, his grip tightening around the stem of his glass. Juliet leaned in. She's just trying to prove something. No, Cole said, his voice tight. She already did. Back on the floor, Marlon leaned close enough to be heard. You know, he said you've turned pain into presence. Not many can do that. Camilla breathed in slowly. I didn't come here to destroy him. I know. I came to remind myself I'm still whole. He nodded. And you are. The music slowed. The lights dimmed for the evening's final toast. Camilla stepped away from the floor, her heart still steady, her heels clicking softly against the marble as she made her way toward the exit. She'd said what needed to be said without ever raising her voice. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was leaving a room. She felt like she was walking toward her life. Rain fell lightly the next morning, misting the brick pathways outside Camilla's soon-to-be former home. The Whitaker estate looked softer in the gray light, almost vulnerable. She watched droplets slide down the glass of the living room windows as boxes piled up around her. The movers weren't due until next week, but Camilla had already started packing her memories. Some left easier than others. She stood holding a silver-framed wedding photo. The image felt foreign. Now her smile too wide, Cole's arm too tight around her waist, both of them looking at the camera like nothing could ever fracture the world they'd built. But it had. And she wasn't going to pretend otherwise. Annalise entered the room carrying 2 coffees. You're up early again. Habit, Camilla replied. Annalise looked at the frame in her sister's hand. You keeping that? Camilla hesitated, then shook her head. No, it doesn't belong in the new house. Annalise took it without a word and set it face down inside an empty box labeled miscellaneous. You heard from Cole? She asked. Camilla shook her head. Not since the gala. You'd think after watching you walk out with a new rhythm he'd at least try. He's not sure what to do when he's not in control. Camilla sipped her coffee. Let him sit in that silence a while. There was a knock at the front door. Camilla glanced at the clock. That's too early for Daphne. She opened the door and blinked in surprise. Marlon. He stood in a charcoal coat, a paper bag in one hand, and a crooked smile on his face. Don't panic, I brought cinnamon rolls and 0 expectations. Camilla couldn't help the laugh that slipped out. You drive 2 hours for pastries? No. but I figured if I waited too long, I'd lose my chance to return the favor. She stepped aside. Come in before my sister thinks you're here to propose. Annalise peeked into the hallway, saw him, and smirked. Should I stay or make myself scarce? Marlon lifted the bag. There's 4 in here. I'll stay, she said, already reaching for one. Camilla poured coffee as they settled into the kitchen, the morning feeling oddly normal. Too normal, maybe. How's Charleston? She asked. Rainy. Political. And missing a decent pastry shop. And business growing. The kind of slow, honest growth that doesn't require selling your soul. She liked that answer more than she expected to. I saw your listing went live yesterday, Marlon said. Yeah. Daphne's already scheduled 5 showings. You ready for that? Camilla looked around the room at the photos taken down the drawers, half empty, the smell of fresh cardboard where there used to be gardenias. No, but I'm still doing it. That's strength, he said. She met his eyes. It doesn't feel like it. He held her gaze. That's how you know it's real. Annalise cleared her throat. Well, I'll leave you two to continue bonding over emotional resilience. She stood and grabbed her purse. Camilla smiled knowingly. Be back for lunch, maybe, unless Marlon says something romantic and ruins everything. He raised an eyebrow. I don't move that fast, good, Annalise said as she left. We like you slow and emotionally available. The door clicked behind her, leaving silence. Camilla leaned against the counter, eyes on the steam rising from her mug. She's not wrong, though. About the romantic part. Marlon tilted his head slightly. Is that your way of saying this is a line we shouldn't cross? She hesitated. I'm not asking for a decision, he added. I'm just here. For whatever that means right now. Camilla's voice softened. It means more than you probably know. A beat passed. You looked like yourself again at the gala, he said. I felt like her for the first time in months. She suits you. Their eyes met again. It wasn't flirtation. It was comfort. That quiet thread of connection that doesn't demand anything, only offers space. The moment was interrupted by Camilla's phone vibrating on the table. She glanced down. Cole. She didn't answer. Marlon stood. I should go. You don't have to. I know, but I think this chapter belongs to you. Alone. He stepped toward the door, then paused. Let me know when you move. I've got a guy who's great with nursery furniture, zero judgment, maximum patience. Camilla smiled. I'll call. When he left, the house felt heavier again. Not lonely, just full of unsaid things. She picked up her phone and stared at the missed call. After a long minute, she opened her messages. From Cole. Can we talk, please? Just 15 minutes. She set it down without replying. The bell chimed again. Not the front door, the side entrance. She opened it cautiously, expecting Daphne or maybe a courier. But it was Juliet. Standing there, hair pulled back, sunglasses perched like a crown. She didn't look smug this time. She looked nervous. Camilla folded her arms. I didn't realize we were on doorstep terms. Juliet's voice was tight. I just need 5 minutes. Then I'll go. Camilla studied her. You have 3. Juliet stepped inside, but only just. I'm not here to apologize. That would mean I'm sorry. And I'm not. Good, Camilla said calmly. Because I wouldn't believe it. Juliet exhaled. I'm here because I thought you should know. Cole's stepping down. From everything. The board, the firm, all of it. Camilla blinked. Why, he says he needs to fix his life. Start over, make things right. Camilla was quiet. Juliet stepped back toward the door. You broke him, Camilla. In a way I never could. Camilla's voice was barely above a whisper. He broke himself. Juliet didn't argue. She left without another word, heels tapping a rhythm of retreat down the stone path. Camilla stood there a moment longer, then closed the door. Not with relief, not with regret, just closure. She turned back towards the kitchen. The cinnamon rolls were still warm. And for once she let herself enjoy something without explaining why. 3 days later, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Cardboard boxes had replaced furniture. Bare walls echoed conversations that used to float effortlessly from room to room. The estate, once a monument to a marriage, now looked like the inside of a goodbye. Camilla stood in the nursery, or what was left of it. The crib had been disassembled and leaned against the wall. The mobile still hung, but only out of habit. She let her fingers trace the fabric of the rocking chair one last time before gently pulling the slipcover over it. She wasn't sad. Not exactly. It felt more like reverence, letting go of a life she'd built with hands that once trembled but didn't anymore. Her phone buzzed on the dresser. A message from Daphne Beyer from Charleston wants to fast-track offer. Says he's connected to someone you know, Marlon Gaines. Camilla blinked, rereading it. The corner of her mouth lifted just slightly. She texted back, schedule a meeting. In person, at the Holloway property. Afterward, she stared out the window toward the garden. The camellias had started blooming early. Even winter had its rebels. By noon, she was at the Holloway cottage, the small white house nestled at the edge of downtown Savannah, just off a quiet lane that smelled of jasmine and salt water when the breeze caught right. The front porch was wide, the paint chipped just enough to give it charm. Inside, sunlight spilled across honey-colored floors. It wasn't a mansion. It didn't need to be. This was where she would start again. Marlon arrived just as she was unrolling a floor plan across the kitchen counter. He stepped inside with a polite knock and a breath of crisp air. New headquarters, he asked, eyes scanning the open space. Something like that, Camilla said. I wanted to see how it felt before I said yes. And it feels honest. He looked at her for a moment. You look lighter. I packed carefully. They shared a quiet smile. She gestured to the floor plans. The buyer is it someone you referred, my cousin Marlon said. Wants to move back to the south. Fresh divorce. Needs a reset. Camilla nodded. That seems to be the theme lately. He stepped closer, curious. So this is the new space. If I accept the offer and close by February, yes. I like it, he said. It's humble, but powerful. Like cinnamon rolls for breakfast instead of revenge. He chuckled. You remembered. Camilla turned toward the window. Cole's stepping down. Juliet told me. Marlon's voice was steady. That doesn't surprise me. It surprised me. Why? Because I thought he'd double down, fight harder to keep what was already breaking. Maybe watching you let go made him realize how tight he was holding on to a lie. She didn't respond at first. Just watched the wind stir the trees through the window. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, she admitted. You're not supposed to feel anything specific, he said. But you do feel something. That means you're still alive in the middle of it. She turned back to face him. That's exactly what scares me. Marlon nodded slowly. Fear means you're close to something real. The air between them felt charged, not with romance, but with clarity. Camilla broke the silence. Come upstairs. I want to show you the room I picked for the nursery. He followed her to the second floor. The ceilings were lower, the walls still bare, but the space was filled with light. This room faces east, she said. I thought about putting the crib here near the window. Marlon ran his hand along the windowsill. Good view of the morning. I want this baby to wake up in warmth. She said, her voice softer now. Not marble floors and empty rooms. He looked at her. That's a beautiful wish. It's not a wish, she said. It's a promise. The pause that followed wasn't heavy. It was sacred. She sat down on the floor, legs crossed, hands resting gently on her stomach. "I never thought I'd be here," she said quietly. "Pregnant, alone, planning a nursery with a man who's not the father." Marlon joined her on the floor, slow and deliberate. "Life doesn't always follow the blueprint." "No," she agreed. "But maybe it still builds something worth living in." Their eyes met. He didn't reach for her. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. "I'm not looking for a replacement," she said. "I'm not offering one," he replied. Another silence. Safe. Uncomplicated. "I've been thinking about something," she said after a while. "What's that?" "If I do take the cottage, I want to turn the garage into a studio, start a line of home goods. Pieces that carry stories, soft finishes, strong materials, real craftsmanship." He smiled. "That sounds like a woman with a vision. I've never needed anyone to believe in me," she said. "But I have to admit it feels nice." Marlon stood, then reached down to help her up. She took his hand. When she was steady on her feet, she didn't let go right away. They walked back downstairs, side by side. The door was open and the wind carried the faint sound of a wind chime hanging from the porch beam. "You know," Marlon said casually, "I wasn't planning on staying in Savannah tonight." Camilla looked at him, but he continued. "I passed a little inn on the way here. One of those converted manors with fireplaces and floral wallpaper. Looked cozy." She tilted her head. "Subtle way to say you want to stay longer." "Not subtle," he said. "Intentional." She nodded once. "Then stay. Savannah's not done with you yet." Marlon smiled. "Neither are you." Camilla stepped out onto the porch with him, the air brisk and full of change. This wasn't a love story. Not yet. This was a becoming story. And it had just begun. The rain hadn't let up for 2 days. Camilla sat near the bay window of the Holloway cottage, curled beneath a quilt with a cup of lemon tea in her hands. The room smelled of cedar and bergamot, her new candles, and the floor was still bare where a rug would eventually go. She liked it that way for now. Unfinished. Honest. She stared through the window at the quiet lane where puddles formed little glass mirrors in the cracked brick road. Her phone buzzed softly on the coffee table. She let it ring once, then twice. Finally, she reached for it. Cole. Again. She stared at the screen until the call stopped. A new voicemail popped up, but she didn't open it. Instead, she set the phone down and pulled the quilt tighter around her shoulders. The quiet held for another 5 minutes before there was a knock at the door. Her body stilled. She stood and opened it cautiously. It was Cole. He stood soaked in rain, his dark coat clinging to his frame, hair, wet eyes, shadowed by exhaustion. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. But not weak, just stripped. "Can I come in?" he asked. Camilla didn't answer right away. "This isn't your home anymore. I know, He looked down, then back up at her. "Please, I just need 10 minutes. You don't even have to talk." She stepped aside. He walked in slowly, eyes adjusting to the warmth and softness of the space. The home was smaller than the estate, but it held a kind of peace that his mansion never had, that he had never created. "You decorated this yourself?" he asked. She nodded. "It's beautiful. Real, that's the point." He sat down in the armchair across from her spot on the floor. There was a long silence. "I stepped down," he said finally. "From everything. I heard. I thought it would feel like failure," he continued. But it didn't. It felt like exhaling. Camilla studied him, but didn't reply. "I've been watching our old life like it's a movie I didn't star in," he said. "And I keep asking myself why I ever traded what we had." For something I can't even name now. You traded presence for performance, she said. He winced. That's fair. Another silence. This one wasn't as comfortable. You didn't just hurt me, Cole. You disrespected the life we built, the family we planned. You made me carry something sacred while feeling disposable. His voice cracked. I know. I loved you, she said, with every careful breath. And you spent that love like it was a temporary loan. His eyes were glassy. I think I wanted to be punished. That's why I let it unravel. I didn't think I deserved to be fought for. You were wrong, she whispered. But you made it true. Cole leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm not here to ask for anything, not a second chance, not sympathy. I just needed you to see that I'm changing. Even if it's too late. Camilla's eyes stayed on his. I believe you're trying. But your growth doesn't erase my grief, and your honesty doesn't rewrite history. He nodded slowly. Will you let me be in the baby's life? He asked. She didn't answer right away. When they're born, yes, but not on your terms. Not as some redemption arc. You'll be a father, not a fixer. You'll show up consistently, quietly, with nothing to prove but everything to give. Cole's eyes closed for a beat. I can do that. She stood, the conversation settled. Then start by leaving today with grace. He rose slowly. Thank you for letting me say what I should have said months ago. She walked him to the door, and when it closed behind him, she didn't cry. She breathed. Hours later, just as twilight bled across the horizon, there was another knock. This time it came with a familiar rhythm. 2 short taps, then 1 long. Camilla smiled. She opened the door to find Marlon holding a brown paper bag, his coat collar turned up against the wind. Don't worry, he said. No emotional speeches, just soup. She stepped aside to let him in. You and food are becoming a theme. He set the bag on the counter and started unpacking. I figured you wouldn't eat properly today. I had toast. Crumbs don't count. She leaned against the counter, watching him pour soup into 2 bowls. He moved comfortably, like the house already recognized him. I saw Cole earlier, she said. Marlon paused but didn't look up. You okay? Yeah. Actually, I think I am. He handed her a bowl and a spoon. Then you're ahead of schedule. They sat on the floor with the bowls in their laps, the dim kitchen light casting soft shadows on the wall. He's trying, she said. I figured he would. Some men only grow when they lose the one person who gave them room to. Camilla sipped her soup. He wants to be in the baby's life. Marlon nodded. That's a good thing. For the baby. For him. For you if he follows through. She tilted her head, thoughtful. You always make things sound simple. I don't think life is simple, he said. But I think clarity is a gift. We just forget to unwrap it. She looked at him. You keep showing up. I told you I would. There was a long pause, and the silence between them this time was soft and full. Camilla set her bowl down. You should know, she said carefully, I'm not ready for anything big. I'm still rebuilding. And some days I'm strong, but some days I miss who I thought I was before all this. Marlon leaned closer, just slightly. Then I'll take you exactly as you are, messy, tired, brilliant, and building. She let herself breathe that in. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like someone healing from heartbreak. She felt like someone healing toward love, not because she needed saving, but because she was choosing to be seen. Savannah was warming. It was subtle, the kind of shift you felt in the morning air, and how the breeze didn't bite quite as hard when it touched your skin. Camilla noticed it first when she stepped outside, barefoot, a small ritual she'd started at the Holloway cottage. Grounded, present, real. She pressed her hand against her stomach. 7 months. The baby had started moving more, not just kicks, but patterns, rhythms, as if already forming habits in the comfort of her. That morning she was preparing samples for the small home goods line she'd been sketching quietly for months. Linen swatches, soft ceramic test pieces, hand-poured candles. Every piece told a story. Nothing mass-produced, nothing impersonal. Annalise had taken over the sunroom, turning it into a temporary office. She had a phone pressed between her shoulder and cheek, talking fast and flipping through a binder. No, we're not rushing the launch. We're curating. That's the word. And yes, the founder is pregnant, not comatose. Camilla smiled from the kitchen. I'm hanging up now. Annalise snapped gently because you're giving me second-hand stress. She clicked the phone off and turned toward her sister. That was Lila from the Artisans Co-op. She thinks you're magic. I'm just making what I wish existed. Annalise grabbed a notebook and sat across from her. Well, keep doing it. Because I've already got buyers in Charleston, Asheville, and one boutique in Brooklyn asking when they can pre-order. Camilla blinked. That fast you forget, Cam. Your name still carries weight. You've just finally put it on something that reflects you. Before Camilla could respond, there was another knock at the door. She opened it to find Marlon standing there holding a cardboard box and wearing an expression she couldn't quite read. Delivery, he said. She narrowed her eyes. Should I be suspicious? Only slightly. He followed her inside and set the box on the counter. Open it. She pulled at the tape, carefully lifting the flaps. Inside were 4 custom display signs, each engraved with the name of her new brand, Field and Flame, by Camilla Holloway. Her breath caught. I thought it might help to see it in the world before it officially is, Marlon said quietly. She ran her fingers over the engraving, tracing the letters, as if memorizing them. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just tell me if I spelled it right. She laughed, hand still pressed to the wood. It's perfect. I've also booked you a space at the Spring Makers Market. 2 months from now. Camilla looked up. That's close to my due date. Then we make a soft launch. You show up if you can. If not, I'll man the table. You've already done the work. Let people see it. She studied him for a long moment. You keep showing up. Marlon shrugged. It's how I was raised. Be where you're needed, even if no one says it out loud. She looked down, trying to hide the way her heart folded inward at his words. Annalise peeked around the corner. Not to interrupt, but I need to go meet with the co-op rep downtown. Camilla nodded. You okay going solo? I'm a Holloway. I was born solo. She winked and slipped out the door. Marlon and Camilla were left in the gentle quiet of the late morning. Camilla sat at the table and gestured for him to join her. Can I ask you something real? Always? What do you want from me? He didn't hesitate. Truthfully, please, I want to be part of your piece. She blinked. I don't need a title, he continued, or a roadmap. I don't expect you to name this, but I want to be in your world, not just at the edges. I want to be a safe place, not another promise with conditions. She let that sit between them. It was the kind of answer that made your bones feel seen. I'm not ready, she said quietly. I know. And I don't know how I'll feel once the baby's here. I know that too. But I like you in my world, she added. And I don't want to pretend I don't. Marlon smiled, warm and honest. Then let's stay right here, wherever this is. She nodded slowly. They sat for a long time, sipping tea and talking about things that didn't hurt music markets, what color she wanted the product tags to be. When he finally stood to leave, she walked him to the porch. As they reached the door, He paused. "I saw Cole yesterday," he said. Camilla's eyes flickered. "We're downtown, near Forsyth." He looked different, not in a bad way, just softer, like something inside him finally stopped fighting. She nodded, processing. "I think he's going to be okay," Marlon added. "I hope so, not for you, for the child," she said. "And maybe for him too. Eventually." Marlon reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "What's that? I found it at a bookstore in Charleston," he said. "It's a first edition excerpt from a memoir about healing after betrayal. There's a line in there I thought you'd like." He handed it to her, and she unfolded it carefully. "I didn't forgive to set him free. I forgave because I refused to chain myself to a moment that no longer owned me." She read it twice. Then again. When she looked up, Marlon was already stepping off the porch. She called out after him. "Hey." He turned. She smiled softly. "That's the kind of line you highlight in yellow and read when it rains." "Then I hope it rains just enough," he said. Camilla stood there for a while, after he left, the quote still in her hand, the baby rolling gently beneath her palm. For once the future didn't feel like something to fear. It felt like something she was already walking toward. One step, one truth, one quiet moment at a time. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the open windows of the cottage. A warm breeze drifted in, carrying the faint scent of magnolia and something else spring on the edge of arrival. Camilla sat on the porch swing, a linen journal resting on her belly, as she jotted down more product ideas. Her handwriting had changed, softer, rounder, almost like her body knew to slow down and savor instead of rush and conquer. Every so often she'd stop writing just to listen, to the creak of the swing, to the rhythm of birds nesting in the oak above her, to the new silence of her life that no longer felt like absence but space. The gate latch clicked. She looked up to see a familiar figure approaching. Mrs. Ruby, carrying a tote bag, a scarf tied neatly over her silver hair, and a knowing expression that never seemed to age. Camilla stood smiling. "I was starting to wonder if you'd forgotten about me." Mrs. Ruby hugged her gently, careful of her belly. "Child, you know I let people wander when they need to find their own legs. But I always circle back." They walked inside together. Mrs. Ruby looked around the cottage like a mother inspecting a child's new apartment. "You made this place speak," she said. "It's still learning the right words." Mrs. Ruby laughed. "Well, it's whispering comfort. That's a start." Camilla poured sweet tea as they sat at the kitchen table. "You ever notice how peace can feel louder than chaos when you've lived in noise too long?" Camilla asked. Mrs. Ruby didn't answer right away. She just sipped her tea and watched Camilla with those eyes that always saw beneath the surface. "I didn't come to talk about Cole," she said finally. Camilla blinked. "I didn't ask. But your heart is still sorting the leftovers." Camilla looked down at her hands. "He's trying. I can see it, but it's not about him anymore. Good. Because this isn't his redemption arc. It's your rebirth. There it was. No fluff. Just truth wrapped in velvet. I just wonder sometimes if I'll always have a part of me that doubts," Camilla whispered. "Even with Marlon. Even with the good." Mrs. Ruby leaned forward. "Child loving again doesn't mean you forgot the pain. It means you've learned how to carry the memory without letting it steer the wheel. Scars itch when they heal. That's how you know it's working." Camilla felt the words drop into place like puzzle pieces that had been missing. "What if I get it wrong again? Then you will learn again. But you won't lose yourself this time. That's the difference." They sat for a while, quiet, in the way only two women can be when love has cut them and taught them both how to bleed and bind. A knock came at the door, soft and steady. Camilla opened it to find Marlon standing there, dressed in a pale button-up sleeves, rolled to his forearms, holding a brown envelope. "Sorry for dropping by," he said. "I didn't want to text this." Camilla stepped aside. "You're always welcome." He noticed Mrs. Ruby in the kitchen and nodded respectfully. "Ma'am." I like this one," she said without looking up. Marlon handed Camilla the envelope. "My cousin finalized the offer on the estate. Closing next week." Camilla opened it and scanned the short note inside. She looked up slowly. "It's real now." Marlon nodded. "It is." Mrs. Ruby stood gathering her things. "I've said my piece. I'll let you have your air." Camilla kissed her on the cheek. "Thank you. For showing up. You're learning that lesson too." Mrs. Ruby smiled. "You know how to pick the ones who do." She left, and the screen door clicked behind her. Marlon stood in the living room looking slightly unsure. "I didn't mean to interrupt anything important." "You didn't. That was more important than you know." Camilla walked to the window, looking out toward the garden. "I signed the papers last week," she said softly. "I knew the offer would come through. I just didn't want to feel it yet, and now I feel everything she said. But none of it scares me the way it used to." Marlon stepped closer. "That's what growth sounds like." She turned to him, and for the first time there was no wall between them. Just time and choice. "You said you wanted to be part of my piece," she said. "I still do." "Then tell me what that looks like." He exhaled, but it wasn't nerves. It was honesty finding breath. "It looks like mornings where I make coffee while you hum in the background. It looks like us walking through flea markets and not needing to speak the whole time. It looks like showing up not because I have to prove something, but because I can't imagine not being where you are." Camilla swallowed. "It's terrifying how much I want to believe that." "Then let it terrify you," he said. "And I'll still be here." She stepped forward. And for the first time in months, she reached for someone without bracing for impact. Her hands found his. No promises, no timeline, just two people choosing softness in a world that hadn't been gentle. The baby kicked then. Camilla's breath caught. Marlon looked down, startled, then smiled. "She's got timing." Camilla nodded, tears quietly forming. "She always knows when I'm choosing something brave." Outside, the wind shifted again. Inside, something settled. Not finished, but finally beginning. The morning of the closing was overcast, the kind of gray that muted everything: light, sound, even memory. Camilla sat in her parked car outside the estate, for longer than she meant to, hands resting on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the familiar front gate. The gate had once felt like protection. Now it just felt like punctuation marking the end of a chapter she'd already begun rewriting. She stepped out slowly, wrapping her coat tighter around her belly. The weight of the child grounded her. Reminded her this visit wasn't about ghosts. It was about gathering the last pieces of a life that no longer fit. The front door was already unlocked. Of course it was. Cole stood in the foyer, hands in his pockets, the echo of her heels drawing his eyes to hers. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," he said. "I needed to," Camilla replied. They stood across from one another, the space between them, once filled with dreams, now filled with quiet acknowledgement. "I left the paperwork on the dining room table," he said. "Everything's ready. You don't need to speak to the lawyers again unless you want to." Camilla nodded, glancing down the long hallway that led to what used to be their life. "I just wanted to see it one last time," she said. "Not to mourn it, just to honor the version of me who built it." Cole followed her gaze, but said nothing. They walked together in silence. through the kitchen where she once tried to make Christmas cookies from scratch, through the den where arguments and apologies blurred into wallpaper, and finally into the nursery still untouched. The rocking chair was still there. Camilla reached out and touched its arm. "This chair came a week after we ordered it," she said softly. "I sat in it when you were on your business trip in Milan. I hadn't told you yet. Told me what he asked." She turned slowly. "That I was pregnant." His face collapsed in regret. "I wish I'd been here." "You weren't," she said. "But I was." She exhaled, brushing her hand across her stomach. "And now so is she." They stood in silence, the weight of too many unsaid things resting in the air. "I want to do right by her," Cole said. "Whatever that means. Then start by learning her not buying her." He nodded. Camilla turned back to the window. "I'm not bitter anymore," she said. "But I won't romanticize what we had either. I wouldn't expect you to. It was beautiful, until it wasn't." That line hung there, suspended like breath in cold air. He looked at her, voice lower. "Do you love him?" Camilla didn't answer right away. "Loving someone new doesn't erase what I lost," she said. "It just means I chose not to stay where the breaking happened." He closed his eyes. "I get it." She stepped toward him and held out her hand. "To new beginnings," she said. Cole hesitated, then took it gently. His grasp was light, reverent. They didn't hug. They didn't need to. Closure in its truest form doesn't always come with grand gestures. Sometimes it's just choosing to walk out the same door you once begged to stay behind. Camilla left the house without looking back. Back at the Holloway cottage, she found Marlin in the garden, sleeves, rolled up fingers deep in the soil of a new raised bed. He looked up as she approached. "How was it?" he asked. "Like walking through a house I used to visit in a dream," she said. "But I'm awake now." He stood brushing dirt from his hands. "I like the sound of that." She stepped closer, leaning into him just slightly. "You always feel like something solid. I'm a carpenter, remember I live to build things strong." She smiled, resting her hand on his chest for a moment. "I have something I want to show you," she said. He followed her into the cottage and up the stairs. The nursery was taking shape. Pale sage walls, a mobile of tiny paper cranes, a bookshelf already half filled with stories waiting to be read out loud. But what caught Marlin's eye was the framed photo on the dresser. It wasn't of a person. It was the first product from her line, an unlit candle in a hand-thrown ceramic vessel. Next to it, a small linen card that read, "Field and flame light for the moments you choose to stay." He looked at her. "You're not just healing," he said. "You're giving the world a way to do it too." "I'm trying," Camilla said, voice quiet but full. He stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "I hope I'm part of the story you write next." "You already are," she whispered. They stood in the soft light of the nursery, hearts-aligned futures, unwritten, but full of direction. Outside, the clouds began to break. And inside, without ceremony, without announcement, something sacred began to bloom. Camilla hadn't meant to fall asleep. The sun had already dipped past the trees, leaving behind a watercolor sky of plum and rose, when she woke on the couch, hand resting instinctively on her belly. The baby had been still most of the day, not unusual, but enough to make her check the time. She sat up slowly, pressing her palm again to her bump. Nothing. She tried changing positions gently, massaging her side, whispering little reassurances to the life curled inside her. Still quiet. A ripple of unease moved through her. She reached for her phone. 10 minutes later, she was sitting in an exam room at Savannah Regional, the soft beeping of a fetal monitor filling the silence. A nurse adjusted the gel on her stomach, then turned the screen toward Camilla. "There," she said with a small smile. Heartbeats steady. Sometimes they just have quiet days like us. Camilla let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Still, something didn't settle. She listened to the heartbeat echo in the room, a soft rhythm, steady and real, but her own felt like it was lagging behind, still chasing calm. Dr. Langston entered a moment later, clipboard in hand, warm eyes soft with familiarity. "You're fine," she said gently. "The baby's fine, but your blood pressure's creeping up again." Camilla nodded. "I've been trying to stay rested, eating well, meditating." "You're doing everything right," the doctor reassured. "But you've been under a lot of emotional weight lately. Your body keeps the score even when your mind says it's coping." There was a pause. Camilla looked up. "Is it dangerous? Not yet. But it could be. Let's monitor you closely for the next couple of weeks. No stressors. No pushing yourself. And if anything feels off, you come in." Camilla nodded again, but her chest felt tight. Not because of the baby, but because of everything around the baby. The decisions, the ghosts, the love that felt too gentle, too new, the forgiveness she still didn't know how to wear. She left the hospital with a list of instructions and a whisper of worry trailing her like fog. By the time she got back to the cottage, the porch light was already on. Marlon was there. He stood when she pulled in a tension in his body that mirrored her own. "I was about to call," he said, helping her out of the car. "You didn't answer. I was at the hospital." His hand froze halfway toward her shoulder. "Is it? She's okay?" Camilla said quickly. "We're okay." It was precautionary. Relief swept over his face, but it was laced with something deeper. "I didn't know how scared I was until you said it out loud." They sat inside, tea forgotten on the counter, wrapped in the hush of candlelight and the creak of old floorboards. Camilla leaned back, exhausted but wired. "I don't want to be afraid," she said quietly. "But sometimes I still am. I second-guess everything. My instincts, my boundaries. Even this us." Marlon didn't flinch, he just listened. "I think I know how to survive," she continued. "I've learned how to walk away from what breaks me, but I don't know if I know how to stay in what might love me." He reached across the couch and took her hand, slow and certain. "You're not failing because you're scared," he said. "You're healing. And healing isn't tidy." Her eyes welled. "What if I break this too? You won't," he said. "Because this time you're not abandoning yourself to keep it." She looked at him, startled by the truth in that. "You always say the right thing. I say the real thing," he corrected. "And sometimes that just sounds like the right thing." There was a long pause. Then Camilla whispered, "The baby was quiet for hours. I thought, I don't know, I just panicked." Marlon moved closer, hand brushing her cheek. "You've been carrying so much on your own. Let me hold some of it." She nodded, then leaned her head against his chest, her breath finally catching up to her heart. Outside, the wind picked up, cool, insistent. Inside, the turning point had come quietly, not with a bang, but with a soft surrender to what might be safe, what might last, what might just be love. Camilla didn't sleep that night, not deeply. She lay in bed with the window cracked open, letting the early spring air drift in. Somewhere beyond the pines, a bird called out, not quite morning, not quite night. That in-between hour where the world holds its breath. Marlon had offered to stay, just in case. But she'd told him no. Not because she didn't want him there, but because she needed to know she could hold herself fully in the quiet. The heartbeat monitor from the hospital echoed in her mind. Slow, steady, present. She pressed her hand against her belly. The baby was moving again, small shifts, reassuring and rhythmic. "I hear you," she whispered. "We're okay." By morning, she had made a decision. She wanted to see the workshop. Marlin's workshop was just outside of town, tucked behind a row of old pecan trees, and housed in what used to be a cotton barn. When she arrived, the doors were open, and music played low, something instrumental and slow like memory with strings. He looked up from his workbench when she entered. "I didn't expect you this early," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "I didn't expect to be up before the sun." She smiled. He gestured to a stool. "Sit. I'll make coffee." The place smelled like cedar and varnish, like something permanent being built. In the corner, a bassinet stood half-finished, its smooth curves and clean lines, unlike anything she'd seen in stores. "You're making that?" she asked. He nodded. "Started a few weeks ago. Didn't want to ask your permission in case you said no." Her voice was soft. "Why would I say no?" "Because you don't owe me a place in this story," he said. "I'm just showing up anyway." Camilla walked over, ran her hand along the wood. It was warm, alive, like it had been waiting for a purpose. "You didn't ask me to choose," she said. "You just became someone I didn't want to let go of." He looked at her, surprised. "I've been scared," she admitted, "of making another mistake, of trusting the wrong heart. But you've never asked me to trust you. You just made it feel safe when I did." Marlin stepped closer, slower this time, careful not to crowd the moment. "What do you need?" he asked. "I need to stop bracing for the fall," she said. "I need to let good things arrive without convincing myself they're temporary." He reached up and tucked a curl behind her ear. "Then let this be one of those things." Her breath hitched, not from fear, but from how simple it sounded. How right. Outside, a soft rain had started to fall, threading silver over the roof. It made the whole world feel slower, like time was stretching just to hold them there. They sat together on the old bench by the window, not saying much. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He didn't move. "I don't want to rush us," she said quietly. "You're not," he replied. "We're not on a clock. I just don't know what this looks like." After the baby, after things shift. Marlin turned his head, voice like gravel, softened by rain. "Then we figure it out as it comes. No forecasts, just steps." Camilla closed her eyes. That was what she'd missed for so long, someone willing to walk the slow road. No fireworks, no grand declarations, just presence. Later that afternoon, back at the cottage, Camilla stood in the nursery alone. Her fingers traced the edge of a hand-painted mural, wildflowers blooming in shades of soft peach and deep gold. She imagined holding her daughter here, singing, soothing, starting fresh. Then her phone buzzed. Cole. She stared at the screen for a long beat. Then she answered. "I'm not calling to disrupt anything," he said quickly. I needed to tell you something." Camilla held the phone to her ear heart, steady. "I'm leaving Savannah," he said. "At least for a while. I've taken a fellowship in San Francisco, teaching business ethics." That made her pause. "You ironic, I know," he said with a sad chuckle. "But it feels like the right kind of discomfort." Camilla nodded silently, her voice still wrapped in thought. "I'll be back for the birth," he added. "If that's okay." "It is," she said. "And Camilla," he said, voice catching. "Thank you for how you've handled all of this, for letting me try to be better even if I'm not part of your future." She didn't fill the silence. She just let the gratitude settle between them. After the call, Camilla stepped outside. The rain had stopped. The sky had cleared. Everything smelled clean. She looked out over the garden beds. It was strange how endings always made space for beginnings. And this time she was ready to grow something real. It had been 4 days since the rain, and the skies hadn't wept since. Savannah, ever dramatic, bloomed defiantly with camellias pushing through winter's last breath like a promise kept too long. Camilla stood on the edge of her garden, one hand on her belly, the other holding a worn envelope from the university, the final paperwork for Field and Flame's spring launch partnership. She was finally doing it. Her own brand, her own way. Yet the paper in her hand felt lighter than the weight in her chest. "You look like you're staring through the world," Marlon's voice called gently from the porch. She turned. He was barefoot, shirt untucked, holding 2 mugs of coffee like he'd read her mind. Camilla smiled faintly and walked toward him, her fingers brushing his as she took the cup. "It's all happening," she said quietly. "The business, the baby, the beginnings." Marlon studied her. And I don't know where you fit into all of it yet?" He didn't flinch. "That's fair," he said. "I think about it too." They sat side by side on the porch swing, their shoulders closed, the silence between them, soft but unsolved. "I know what I want," he said. "But I also know how hard it is to trust what's good when you've had your heart returned to you in pieces." Camilla looked at him. "You feel like something real." "But I've built whole lives on things that felt real and weren't." He nodded slowly. "Then let this be different, not rushed, not named before it grows roots. Let it be a garden. We tend it, and if it blooms, we know it was ours." A pause. Camilla let her head fall gently onto his shoulder. She didn't say yes, but she didn't pull away either. That night, she had a dream. The baby was born tiny pink, wrapped in a cotton swaddle with a golden bow. In the dream, she couldn't see the child's face. Only a quiet nursery, a chair that rocked by itself, and the overwhelming feeling that something had been left unsaid. She woke with her heart racing and a thin sheen of sweat at her collarbone. The house was still, but something pulled her to the dresser. She opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the sonogram photo. The first one. The one she'd shoved away the night she'd learned the truth about Cole. She stared at it now. The curve of a spine. The ghost of a hand. Proof that love and betrayal had collided in her body. And still something beautiful was growing. Camilla tucked it into a frame and placed it on the nursery shelf. Then she did something she hadn't done since Christmas. She called her mother. The conversation was awkward at first, but then it softened. Her mother cried when Camilla said she was naming the baby Florence after her grandmother. "Your Nana would have been proud of you," her mother said. "You've done something we all struggled with, choosing yourself without apology." Camilla hung up with a full heart, the edges of old wounds knitting themselves into something close to peace. Later that day, Marlon found her sanding down an old wooden toy chest they'd salvaged from a thrift store. "You nesting now?" he teased gently. "I guess so," she laughed. "Or maybe just claiming space." He set down a small toolbox beside her and knelt beside the chest. "Mind if I help?" They worked in tandem, the quiet rhythm of shared effort filling the room. After a while, Camilla asked, "What do you want this to be? Not the baby, not the business. Us." He looked up. "I want to be your stillness when the world spins too fast. I want to be the man who never needs to be your everything, just your safe place." She blinked back, sudden tears. "And if I can't promise more than the day in front of me, then we love each other one honest day at a time." There it was again. That peace she never had to perform for. That love without condition. Camilla leaned in, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "You're my calm after the storm." "No," he murmured, brushing sawdust from her hair. "You were your own calm. I just showed up to see it." Outside, the camellias bloomed brighter than yesterday. Inside, the future was unfolding one breath, one choice, one tender step at a time. The morning light streamed across the nursery wall in wide, golden bands. Camilla sat in the rocking chair, cradling a warm mug of raspberry leaf tea. Her hands rested quietly on her belly. Each morning now felt like a whispered countdown. Less than a month to go. The bassinet Marlin had built was finally complete, sanded smooth, finished in a gentle milk-white stain. She ran her fingers along its edge, marveling at the love shaped into every corner. There was peace in the room, but not in her chest, because she knew what today was. Cole's flight had landed just after sunrise. He'd texted. Just one line. "I'd like to see you today if you're willing." Camilla hadn't replied yet. She stared at the message again, thumb hovering over the screen. Her heart beat slow and full, like it wanted more time to think. But the knock on the door came before she had the chance. She knew it was him. She didn't need to look through the window. Some presences you feel before you see. Opening the door was a decision she made in silence, for closure, for clarity, for Florence. Cole stood in a soft blue sweater and slacks, freshly shaved, somehow smaller than she remembered, but maybe it was just the weight he no longer carried in her life. "Hey," he said quietly. "Come in," she replied, stepping aside. They walked to the living room. Everything about the cottage made him seem like an artifact in the wrong museum, like he didn't belong in the story anymore. Cole looked around, nodding. "This place is beautiful," he said. Camilla sat, her voice calm. "What did you want to say?" He took a breath. "I came to thank you for not turning me into a villain I couldn't recover from." Camilla tilted her head. "You recovered? I'm recovering," he corrected. "Being alone helped. For once, I couldn't outrun myself." She looked at him carefully. "That's a good start." He hesitated. "And I want to be there when she's born. If that's what you want?" Camilla didn't speak right away. "Then I do want that for her, not for us. There is no us anymore, Cole." "I know. I say that without bitterness," she added. "Just honesty." He looked down, then nodded. "You look strong." "I am." He smiled sadly. "You always were. I just didn't see it until you stopped needing me." Camilla felt that sentence land in the center of her chest. Then she said the words she hadn't prepared, but knew were true. "I forgive you." Cole looked up, startled. "But forgiveness isn't a key back into my life," she added. "It's the gate that lets me leave the past behind." He swallowed. "Thank you." Camilla stood, and so did he. "Take care of yourself, Cole." "And her?" he asked. She nodded. "We will." When he left, Camilla didn't cry. She exhaled. Full, long, clear. Later that afternoon, Marlin returned from town, a paper bag of groceries in one hand, a small bouquet of wildflowers in the other. For the soon-to-be mama, he grinned. Camilla took the flowers, her heart rising. Then gently, he came. Marlin's smile didn't falter. I figured he might. I told him the truth. That he can be present for her, but not for me. Marlin nodded once slow. "You didn't owe him that, but you gave it anyway. I think I needed to hear myself say it out loud." She stepped closer. "I don't know how this will all unfold, but I know who I am now. I'm not waiting to be chosen. I've already chosen myself." Marlin set the bag down and placed both hands on her shoulders. "You've done more than choose yourself," he said. "You've built something no one can take from you." They stood like that, still steady together. And in that moment, with the sun warming their backs and the baby stirring between them, Camilla realized she wasn't surviving anymore. She was living. On purpose, without apology. And tomorrow she'd begin again. Camilla never imagined the world could feel this quiet and full at the same time. The hospital room was dim, washed in soft lamplight. Outside, the moon glowed low, casting a silver hue over the parking lot. Inside, it was just her Florence, and the hush of something sacred. She sat propped up in bed, the baby wrapped in a cream cotton swaddle, her tiny fingers curled like commas against Camilla's chest. Each breath the newborn took seemed to shift the air itself, slow, shallow but sure, like the beginning of something true. Cole had been there earlier. He came in with gentle steps and a voice that trembled when he asked to hold his daughter. Camilla had watched him not with resentment, but with a quiet understanding. He didn't cry, but something in him broke open, and for once he didn't try to hide it. "I'm not going to pretend I know how to do this," he'd whispered, "but I want to try. I want her to know I showed up." Camilla had nodded. "Then do it, not just now, every day you can." He left an hour later, eyes, red hands shaking, promising to return next week for the parenting class the hospital hosted. Now the room was still. Marlon knocked softly before entering, holding 2 cups of tea and a folded blanket. "I brought backup," he said, his voice low, reverent. She smiled, eyes tired, but lit with something deeper. He set the tea down and came to her side, pausing for a moment as he looked down at Florence. "She's the quiet kind," he whispered. For now, Camilla smiled. "Give her a week." He sat beside her, shoulder against her, hands resting on the edge of the bed. "You did it," he said. "No," she replied. "We did. All of us, even the parts that hurt." They sat in silence, the kind that doesn't need filling. Camilla glanced at him. "I never told you this, but the night I found out about everything, I thought I'd never trust anything good again." Marlon turned his head slowly. And now she looked down at her daughter, her voice breaking just enough. "Now I know good doesn't always come the way we expect it. Sometimes it shows up in a stranger's smile, in a second-hand crib, in silence. And sometimes in the arms of someone who never asked to be your rescue, just your witness." He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Camilla reached into the side drawer and pulled out a small envelope. "I wrote this when I first found out I was pregnant," she said, handing it to him. "It was a letter to my future. I didn't know who'd be in it." He opened it slowly. Inside was a single page. The handwriting curved gently. "I want a life where I am not someone's second chance, but my own first choice," it read. "I want my child to know their mother didn't shrink or settle." She stood, even when her voice shook, even when the ground was new. Marlon read it twice, then folded it, kissed the edge, and tucked it into his jacket pocket like it was something holy. "You've given her more than a name," he said. "You've given her a compass." Camilla let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. The nurse came in a moment later to check vitals, then quietly slipped back out. Florence stirred slightly, letting out a sigh so soft it barely touched the air. "She already sounds like you," Marlon said. Camilla smiled. "I hope she's braver." "She will be," he said. "Because she'll know what love looks like when it's real. Not rushed, not perfect, just honest." The lights outside dimmed a bit more. The world settled again. Camilla turned her head, resting it lightly on Marlon's shoulder. "What happens next?" she asked, not out of fear, but curiosity. "We live," he said. "One day at a time. One breath, one bottle, one midnight lullaby. And when it gets hard, we remind each other why we stayed." She looked back at Florence, her heart full in a way she never thought it would be again. Forgiveness hadn't been a gift to someone else. It had been the door back to herself. Love wasn't what saved her. It was what she made space for once she'd saved herself. The snow had melted weeks ago, but in her chest it felt like the first warm day after a long winter. She kissed her daughter's forehead. "You're home now," she whispered. And this time, so was she.